Jeremiah chapter 3. And we got a little bit of a start last week in verse 14. Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you. We've got this twofold relationship, as children and as a wife married to a husband. Okay? And remember, we are compared to the bride of Christ and Christ as the bridegroom in the New Testament. So anyway, so we've got this twofold relationship as children. Okay, the children of Israel, they were sure of a father's love. Okay, and this is what we discussed last week. As a wife, they might hope for a revival of past affection from the husband of their youth, or, if you will, the husband that put out a bill of divorcement. Remember, and it says up here, one of these verses about the bill of divorcement, the husband divorcing the wife. Okay, well, and that certainty of that revival of past affection, and we have that today. We can, if we are backslidden, as it says, oh backsliding children, okay, because then if we backslide to where we would think, oh, backslide enough, and you start thinking, God doesn't care about us, he's through with us, and his anger against us is forever. And that's what Jeremiah was telling him. No, God is not going to be angry forever. He is very merciful and very forgiving and long-suffering, and so that's not going to happen. So we come, and so I am married unto you. Okay, we got that twofold, backsliding children, married unto you, and I will. This is where kind of we start with this week. And I will take you one of a city and two of a family. Okay. Now, one of the family in Hebrew is far larger than a city, as the meaning of a family, embraces all the descendants of a common ancestor. See? Now, if I go, back in my family tree, I can find, the Clark side. I can only go back to third great grandfather, unless I think I have to go to like English records, but on Ancestry that costs extra to find anybody further back than my third. But that from my third great grandfather, that would be, what we're talking about here is all of the descendants of him, and the way the Bible kind of puts it in sometimes is, your father, Belteshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson. Okay? In the Bible, he Nebuchadnezzar is referenced as his father, and in places where they're talking about David and his descendants, they're our father David. You follow that? So I could go back and a biblical reference, if you will, to my third great grandfather would be my father. And that's kind of the idea here. This idea of a family embraces all the descendants of a common ancestor. Okay? And thus, actually the tribe of Judah was divided into only about 4 or 5 families. Okay? And you can find out the descendants of Judah, and look in there in the descendants of Judah, and you'll probably find that there are 4 or 5 families, and so we've got this this idea here of one of a city and 2 of a family. So, one of a city could refer to the folks that were, since we're talking dividing up the whole nation into in this section, Israel is the northern 10 tribes, and Judah is Judah and Benjamin, and their division there. And remember, Israel, the northern 10 tribes, had their own place of worship, and they eventually worked into being the Samaritans, Samaria, and the Samaritans. And again, Judah and Benjamin, they did not get along with the Samaritans, but they're actually all cousins. They're all part of the whole family of Israel, of the whole nation of Israel. So we've got that to work. Okay, one of a city, somebody in Jerusalem, and 2 of a family, somebody in the whole family. And I will bring you to Zion. Okay? And Zion can be translated, if you will. The idea of Zion is the true church, the whole church, and that includes us'uns, the whole Christian church, all of God's children. We are all of God's children, even though he did choose the Hebrew people as his special people. Okay? And so, tribal, and anyway, so we've got the true church, and the fulfillment of the promise began with the return, and this was spoken to, the children before the captivity has happened. So the fulfillment of this promise began with the return to Palestine, or the nation of Israel, or Canaan, after the Babylonian exile. But it only, if you will, is completed, return to Zion by the acceptance of us Gentiles, the Christian folks. Okay? It's only in Christianity is this promise fulfilled. So we've got that promise. Take you one of a city, and I will bring you to Zion. And 15, and I will give you pastors according to mine heart. Of course, pastor, leaders of the church. That they're not, if you will, kings or rulers, but pastors which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. Okay? And that's why we have all the pastors today, and we have our pastor, and who not only fills us with knowledge and understanding, fills us with a lot of other stuff, if you will. Anyway, so we have pastors. And it shall come to pass, when ye be multiplied and increased in the land, in those days, and this is, again, in those days, this is like the latter days, and the phrase the latter days, under the teaching of the Messiah, about the Messiah teaching of the prophets, a regular formula for the time of Christ's coming. Okay? So this come to pass in those, saith the Lord, when ye be multiplied and increased in the land, in those days, saith the Lord, they shall say no more. Okay? Now, they shall say no more, okay? Because then, when all of these promises and prophecies come really true, okay? and we're still working, we're still going there, we're still working on those. A lot of the promises of the Messiah, we know who the Messiah is, but there are a whole ton of other people out there who don't know who the Messiah is, and there are a ton of people out there who don't even believe that there is a God. Okay? Yeah, we've got to work around all of that, but all of that is going to happen in those days. This is the teaching of the Messiah was a regular formula for the time of Christ's coming, when all the nation's hopes would be fulfilled. All the nation's hopes. Us too. Us-uns too. And say no more. The Ark of the Covenant, in those days, saith the Lord, they shall say no more, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. Neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done anymore. Okay? When all of this stuff from the Bible comes to pass, okay, and God brings us all back to Zion, okay, we will actually not worry about the Ark of the Covenant. The children of Israel, that was their focus, was the Ark of the Covenant, because of what God told them about the Ark of the Covenant. But in those days, those latter days, we will not be concerned with the Ark of the Covenant, and we won't even remember it. It says here, it won't come to mind. Okay? But again, all the archaeologists, they're still looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and whether some of them want to, well, if they did find the Ark of the Covenant, just think, that would prove a whole bunch of Bible stuff. Okay? Oh, you mean it's real? You mean what God said about the Ark of the Covenant? What happened with the Ark? It's all real? Well, there are some, there are people that's what they're hoping, is to find that. But then they're also, a lot of the archaeologists are kind of hoping they don't find it, because that would disprove them. Anyway, either way, but the idea is we won't need to even be looking for the Ark of the Covenant anymore. When all of this comes true, when we get to heaven, when in Revelation, when the heavenly city of Jerusalem descends to the earth, we won't be worried about the Ark of the Covenant. In those days, the symbol will pass away, because God will then dwell in his people, okay, by the gift of the Holy Spirit, and the terms of the covenant will be written in their hearts. We won't, nobody will need to find it and rebuild it, or we're not going to miss it, and we're not going to trouble about it or regret its loss, right? And So did Ark of the Covenant, neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done any more. At that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord. And this is, again, this reference to the New Jerusalem, the city four square, that will descend, the throne of the Lord. So, remember, when the Ark of the Covenant was in the temple, that's where God would make his presence known. That's where he would sit. That would be, if you will, his throne in the temple. But we're not going to, because, yeah, he will be our God, and I'm trying to put that, anyway, called Jerusalem the throne of the Lord. God will be on his throne in heaven, and we will be able to worship him there. That's what I was trying to get to. That sound right? Okay. Jerusalem, the throne of the Lord, and all the nations shall be gathered unto it. Okay. And here's that: every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess to the name of the Lord, to Jerusalem. Neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart. Okay. We're going to be made perfect, and there won't be any question about who is God, and no question about anything about God, because we will know him, and we will no longer come up with these oddball ideas that folks are coming up with these days, because it's the imagination of their evil heart. And in those days, that future days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel. Remember, we've talked about them being separated, how the house of Israel, they had their idol worship, but Judah's idol worship was worse, because the children of Judah and the families of Judah had the temple, and they had the Ark of the Covenant there in the temple, and their sin, their apostasy, their sin of idol worship was a whole lot worse than Israel's. So they're going to have to make up, kiss and make up, if you will, and they will, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. Okay? And they'll come together and in the land, and again, okay? Remember, all this also kind of refers to, the nation of Israel today. A lot of the Bible scholars in the past did not even imagine that Israel and the nation and the Hebrew people would be brought together in the nation of Israel, in today's nation of Israel. And they are brought together. They're going to walk together, if you will. They shall come together out of the land of the north, and so in Israel today, are talking about all those families. Okay, they are together in that idea in Israel today. Give to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. That land was given to Israel way back when, and they've got it now. And in the near future, it will be a lot bigger than it is now. As far as they will get all of the land that they were promised by God, all of it. And that's where we'll quit for today.